What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have yet another collection update for you. So, got a batch of, new releases, got a fair amount of reissues on here. I got at least one in here that was sent to me by the actual artist itself, which was really cool. And of course, just a fair amount of just interesting underground stuff that I picked up, and some maybe surprising ones. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, pretty solid batch here, and let's get into it. Perdition Temple, Merciless, Upheaval. This is the fourth album from this Tampa-based black and death metal act. Pretty much a continuation of Angel Corpse. This features Gene Palabicki on guitars, and I've been a huge fan of this band ever since they popped up, and actually when I found out that Gene was in the band, I was like, oh, well, hopefully this sounds a lot like Angel Corpse, and yes, it fucking definitely does. Now this is kind of an interesting release because this is 4 original songs and then 4 covers. So, I don't know, kind of odd. It's listed as a full length, but it kind of feels like 2 EPs kind of put together. Either way, the quality of music is awesome, whether he's playing someone else's tunes or playing his own, because this is just absolutely ferocious. Gene's riff work is insanely fast, hyper aggressive, but loaded with really cool hooks, and I really like the production on here. I think the guitars feel a little bit thicker than maybe some past releases, and the drum work is absolutely insane. Like, if you like your death metal or black and death metal, high energy and very thrashy in spots, this is definitely a band to get into. There's definitely a lot of early Morbid Angel vibes, especially Altars of Madness, the song Redemption Avatar, fierce Altars of Madness vibes. So if you absolutely love that album, yeah, no, you'll probably really dig that. Very fast-paced album. I mean, that includes the covers too, because he picked some really fucking fast songs. I do like the fact that there is a song with the word Thrall in it, Enthrall of Malevolence, and it's absolutely fucking badass. Might have a little bit of favoritism there with that word, just because no reason at all. There's none, not a reason. Now, the bands they chose to cover I thought were really cool. They cover Infernal Majesty, Morbid Angel, Pestilence, and Shub Nagurath, which, honestly, after listening to that Shub Nagurath cover, which, oh man, I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's probably the one with the Lovecraftian name. That would make a lot more sense. From the Stars of Nyarlathotep. I always screw up the Lovecraftian pronunciation there. But that's absolutely amazing. I believe they're from Mexico. I can't quite remember. I know a lot of people have brought them up. I just haven't checked them out. Might be time to do that. The Pestilence cover is fucking amazing. They do Patricide, and Blood on My Hands, the Morbid Angel cover. I mean, from fucking Covenant. I fucking love that album. Absolutely nail it. This is a solid release. It's just sort of an odd one, again, because you get this half and half thing, and it doesn't necessarily feel like a full-length album, but it kind of tracks like one. Again, like 2 EPs, but both EPs are awesome, and I don't know, maybe this should have been released as 2 different ones. Either way, I would have bought both because this is fucking awesome. So yeah, if you like your black and death metal flat out fucking intense as hell from start to finish, and you like old school death metal covers, definitely check this out. Coheed and Cambria, Vaxis 3, A Window in the Waking Mind. I'm gonna double check that because that is a lengthy title. I think I got it right. No, it's Vaxis 2. I fucked it up. Anyway, this is the 10th album from this New York prog rock, prog metal. They're just an interesting band. I've been a fan of Coheed and Cambria for years, and I didn't like the last one as much, but I think this one, they took some very interesting chances. This is such a hodgepodge of different styles, and I guess it's progressive in the sense that a lot of the songs are very different from one another, and there's a lot of different vibes captured. You have some flat-out rockers, Shoulders, I think, is just an absolutely catchy, just riffy fucking song with a stupid huge chorus. But you also have songs that are kind of 80s synth pop inspired. You have lavish scores on here that scream, oh my god, this is a fucking Disney movie in audio form. It seems regardless, they just know how to write catchy songs, and I would say overall, this is one of their biggest sounding albums. To say it's overproduced is kind of an understatement because there's so much going on just in terms of the sound, in terms of the layering and polishing it, and possibly too much in some regards. I don't like the auto-tune vocals. I like Claudio's vocals. He has a very insane range. It's kind of hard to get into, a more power pop version of Geddy Lee, but he's good. And, his riff writing is clever. He finds a way to write some cool heavy riffs, but also make them very, poppy and accessible. And these guys kill it on fucking choruses. and the intense sci-fi themes with the comics. I think it's the Armory Wars. I always forget the name of the comic series that Claudio is tied into his music too, because he's in charge of that. It's interesting how the themes work in and out, because the songs are very like personal and relatable, like, you know, kind of like everyday struggles and, you know, emotional stuff. But it also has this underlying sci-fi theme in terms of like the theming behind all their stories, which I've always found really interesting. Now, while a good chunk of these songs are definitely more like power pop influenced and kind of all over the place, and definitely are, I would say, a batch of some of their most accessible songs, there are some longer songs toward the end that are a little bit more of their like prog sound. Their songs are a little bit more lavish in terms of the writing. There's more movements to them. But a lot of this is just very straightforward in terms of like, hey, let's just write some catchy songs regardless. And honestly, I really dug this. Like, there's a lot of songs in here that are just flat out hooky. Like, it's kind of hard to resist them. And in terms of the hooks, they remind me of, you know, the 80s pop that I loved so damn much. It doesn't always work. Again, the auto-tune vocals kind of get annoying. Plus, again, he's a good singer. He doesn't fucking need them. And having this light, airy nature about it without, like, you know, some more heavy songs in here, because there's not a lot of like big heavy songs in here. I mean, I know they're not like the heaviest band, but they know how to write heavy songs, and could have used a little bit more of that. But overall, this was pretty damn good. This was a really interesting listen and a very bold, adventurous album for them in some regards. But yeah, if you are a longtime fan of Coheed and Cambria, I would definitely say check this one out. It is a little bit different, but man, hooks are hooks, and they know how to fucking write them. So yeah, check it out. Decaying Devastate. Now, this is a compilation of this band's first two demos. This is a Finnish death metal band, fiercely war themed, and the demos, I believe, in question are New Order from 2010 and The Annihilation from 2011. And this actually came out in 2011, so I guess they were like quick to get this one out. I've been a fan of this band for a while. I own most of their discography. This is flat out old school death metal, like no bones about it, like very bolt thrower and asphyx worship specifically. You get the Van Drunen vocals, but you also get like some huge death roars, and I think it's the same guy, so him being able to alternate between those two vocal styles, because they're very different, and it seems like they're ripping up separate parts of your fucking larynx when you do them. Pretty fucking solid. Now, I was actually surprised to see on here that this has longer songs than I'm really used to. Like, these guys generally write, you know, like pretty good sized songs, like, you know, like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, occasionally throwing in a longer song over 10 minutes. This has 4 tracks on here that are over 10 minutes. I think one that approaches 15 minutes. And while I really enjoyed them, it kind of felt like, man, like this might be a bit much for a demo. Like, a demo is something you kind of want to get out quickly, just in terms of like, all right, let's get like 4 tracks that are digestible. And they said, fuck that, we have war epics to sing about, and honestly, they're really fucking good. I think there's a little bit more Death Doom influence on these songs than there are on like most of their stuff now. A lot of their stuff is, you know, more mid-tempo, again, like think Bolt Thrower, but you get some like D-beat gallops here and there, and occasionally you get like some Death Doom moments. But this album, especially the song The Aftermath, with its giant, slow, doomy start, and the Van Drunen throaty vocals, like I can't even think of how to describe them other than painful. But man, it's effective. The whole doomy atmosphere, there's like some just nasty, slow, but kind of snarling riffs. And honestly, for a demo, like, these sound really good. Like, I don't know if these were remastered at all or like tweaked in the studio when they reissued them, but they sound really solid. Like, they still have a raw, crispy sound, but they sound well mixed, so you can hear everything. There's not a lot of mud on here. The vocals are nice and out in front, and the guitars have a giant fucking crunch to them. The big standouts on here, though, for me were Annihilation, which is a 14-minute riff fest, like 14 minutes and change, but the song flows really well, and I like the, you know, transitions in it. It kind of keeps this good, steady fucking pace. And the last song, To Decay, which is fantastic. It's a little bit more atmospheric, a little bit more creepy, and it has this really dreary acoustic outro to it that kind of calms down the mood a little bit, but still leaves you unsettled. This is a pretty awesome comp. I own, again, a good chunk of this band's work, and I never heard their early work, and I mean, I can see why they got picked up by FDA. This 100% fits what those guys do in terms of that label, in terms of like the bands they signed. It's nasty, old school death metal, pretty transparent about who they're worshiping here, but they're worshiping some solid fucking bands. So yeah, if you're an Asphyx fan or a Bolt Thrower fan, check out this, check out literally all their stuff, because, I mean, these guys kind of latch on that sound and do it really fucking well. So yeah, check it out. Alright, we have a split EP that came out this year from Anatomia and Undergang. I had to get this. I love both of these bands. I've only recently become a fan of Anatomia, but yeah, I want pretty much all their stuff now after hearing it. And of course, Undergang fucking rules. Love that last one. I'd love pretty much all the shit that I picked up by them. So this is essentially a two-piece of just two different styles of gross, gnarly fucking death metal. Anatomia is definitely more death doom oriented. Like, there's a ton of mental funeral worship on here. Like, again, this is another band I think is very transparent about the bands that influenced them, and yeah, Autopsy is gotta be up there. The opening track, Total Darkness, is over 12 minutes of just disgusting death doom. It's slow, it's plotting, the riffs are fucking thick, they sound like they're dripping out of the fucking speaker. The vocals are low and gurgly. There's like some long growls in there where he kind of just lets his voice do it like a death rattle. Like, I mean, yeah, they're Japanese, and I thought of The Grudge when I fucking heard that. Like, oh, that's creepy. But it works so well with the atmosphere, which is just steeped in fucking filth. Their production, I think, is fantastic. It totally captures, like, everything they're about. Like, it's just gross sounding. The bass has a really nasty tone to it. Like, all in all, I loved both tracks on here by them. Bound to Death is the other one. It's also amazing. It's just a little bit shorter, but that's that opener. Total Darkness. It sounds like it was written and performed in total darkness just to capture the rest of the fucking mood there. It's just fucking gross. And then on the Undergang side, well, first off, I have no idea how to properly pronounce any of these song titles because, well, they're Danish, and there's some words that seem familiar, but, no, I'll probably fuck them up too. But I thought this side was really interesting because it kind of, I don't know, like, branched outside of what I expected from Undergang, namely the vocals. Like, Undergang is known for those like super low, like Demolich style burp vocals, and honestly, they are not the main thing on here. There's more of like, well, it's still low, but it's not like, you know, Demolich low, or rather like Undergang low. They're kind of like up a little bit, like more of a standard death metal growl, but man, the riff work. I mean, that's kind of what I signed up for anyway. They're just killer fucking riff writers, and they kind of make this disgusting fucking death metal. And of course, the atmosphere is nasty and gross too, because that is exactly what Undergang does so well. I absolutely love the breakdown on the last track. Taxidermy? I don't know. There's actually stuff in parentheses, and it's even more difficult, so yeah. Anyway, last track. Disgusting fucking breakdowns in there. Yeah, I pretty much loved everything about this split. I kind of knew I would. Like, this was, I guess, a safe buy because I have not been disappointed by either one of these bands yet, and I did not think that was going to happen this time, or I don't know, honestly, any other time. Not a super long release, but I mean, it's a split EP. You kind of expect it to be short, but I loved everything on here. This is absolutely sick. But yeah, if you're a fan of like Autopsy, Incantation, or like literally both of these bands, I strongly recommend checking it out. This one is moving into consideration for, you know, like the top 10 EPs of 2022 already. Like, there's a lot of holding places there, but the more I jam this, the more I dig it. So yeah, definitely check this out. Werewolves, From the Cave to the Grave. This is the third album in 3 years from this Australian blackened death grind act. I don't know, I think that's kind of all-encompassing there in terms of what they do. This band is fucking awesome. I love all three of the releases, and I think they keep getting better with each release because I think this is the best one yet. This band just plays fast and aggressive. They're in your face. There's lots of dark humor. I dare this band to be more fucking Australian. The samples on here are hilarious. The attitude's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure this album called me a cunt like fucking 4 times. The song titles are fucking awesome. The first one I heard was We Are Better Than You. And holy shit, watch that lyric video just so you can get a better like grasp on the lyrics, because it's fucking awesome. It's fucking hilarious. I mean, this song calls you pretty much everything it can. But I like this dark humor thing, but they're also talking about like history and sort of taking their own like spin on it, like not revisionist or anything. But yeah, like, yeah, history is dark and awful, and we're here to make some dark humor about it. And honestly, it fucking works. But my God, the fucking songs. Dave Haley's drum work is so fucking tight, and this is one of their catchiest albums yet, just in terms of the riffs. Like, it's just a fun album to listen to. It blazes by because this is like very blast beat centric, but they do slow it down a little bit. There's like some more groovy stuff. There's some more atmospheric stuff this time. I love the galloping chugs that are all over Oedipus Tyrannus, and I like the darker, moody, more sinister vibe on Harvest of the Skulls. The riff work on here is so damn good. Like, there's a thrashy energy to it, but it's super fucking brutal. And how they pivot back and forth between styles, like Crushing Heaven's Mandate, you get like those Cannibal Corpse, like crawling riffs that you would hear on like, you know, like Return to Flesh, and then pivoting into like black metal with fucking blast beats and shit. I just love the outright intensity and how fucking heavy this is, but again, it's catchy. The songs are fucking memorable. It's not just this blast beat fest of, you know, songs that's like, well, that was cool, but it really didn't stick with me. Like, these guys know how to write fucking killer songs. It's pretty much black metal meets Misery Index and Terrorizer. If you like fast and aggressive music across the board and from start to finish, like, there are definitely moments that slow it down, but I mean, it doesn't, you know, dial down the intensity one fucking bit on here. Definitely check this out. Check out their other two albums too. But honestly, this one might be their best one yet, and I absolutely loved the first two, but they keep getting better. And I don't know if they're going to do another album next year. I mean, 3 albums in 3 years, you've earned the right to fucking slow down. But if you can keep up the quality of output, I am all for it. But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. Strongly recommend checking it out. Yeah, this album will pretty much just tell you to get fucked, wanker, or whatever the fuck they say in Australia. I don't know. They might call people wankers there. But yeah, awesome album. Check it out. Massacre Mythos. This is the 3rd EP overall from these Tampa death metal veterans, recently reunited. And yeah, I went over the last one, Resurgence. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but honestly, I hear some improvements on here. Now, production-wise, it is pretty much identical. They actually had Dan Swano master it, and I mean, it sounds just like, you know, Resurgence pretty much, which I didn't have like a huge problem with the production. It was more or less the music. And part of it is due to the fact that, you know, Roger Johansson's in here, as well as Johnny Peterson, and they have Scott Fairfax doing lead guitars. So yeah, 3 guitarists involved. But Roga, while I like him, like Paganizer's fucking awesome. I like a lot of like early revolting stuff, but he has a very particular style and a very particular sound that he goes for. And, you know, inevitably, if he's in your band, I would check right now, just look around the room if you're in a band and watching this. He might have showed up and brought his guitar, but his band's kind of, you know, run together in terms of sound. And you get a little bit of that here, but honestly, I kind of like this one a bit better than the full length. I think one of my main issues were Cam's vocals, not necessarily his delivery, because he has a great fucking roar. It's just that he was like doing too much. Like, the whole album was just loaded with him growling and not necessarily just doing the lyrics. He would just go brrr for like no reason and throw a ton of reverb on it. So there were like a lot of sections where he didn't let the riffs really breathe. Here they actually dial that back, and it actually was a lot more effective just because, you know, you kind of give these riffs time to breathe. And, you know, it's a fun overall album. It's very meat potatoes, very straightforward, very thrashy. Like, you know, it's not like blast beat driven. Like, you get like good thrashy rhythms. It has a good high energy to it and nice like groovy breakdowns, because this is fiercely old school. But I do think it's a slight step up from Resurgence, and it might have something to do with this being a shorter offering. Like, it's maybe 15 minutes long. So, you know, the songs don't get a chance to get too repetitive because they have like kind of one style locked in. And granted, it's good, but you can get too much of a good thing. And that was kind of an issue on Resurgence, whereas like, this is maybe too long for what it is. This is, you know, more of the appropriate offering of this style, because the songs aren't necessarily that different from one another, but there are enough moments in there where they break them up. And again, it's a short listen. I think there are slightly more dynamics. I think the Lovecraftian vibe is a little bit more like thought out on this. I mean, hell, he even made the cover in there. It's no secret that Cam loves Lovecraft. Like, it's literally on like every fucking album. Well, except for that one that I don't ever want. But yeah, this was actually pretty decent. And honestly, my expectations were not necessarily that high for this, but ended up pretty much impressing me. So yeah, I mean, if you love Massacre, you like thrashy death metal, you like things fiercely old school, and Lovecraft, yeah, definitely check this out. It's pretty solid. Trouble, Green Plastic Head. This was the 6th album from these Chicago-based Doom legends. Been one I've been kind of flirting with getting, and I saw it was reissued by Hammerheart, which they do fucking amazing jobs with their remasters. I got the ones for the Skull and the self-titled, fucking fantastic. Like, all their reissues, for like all the bands they reissue, they do a great job remastering. But I was always on the fence about this one because this is the one that followed Manic Frustration, which I thought was a really good album. It was just like more like kind of like a classic rock vibe. Like, it was less doomy, it wasn't necessarily as heavy. Like, you know, Eric Wagner definitely had like his love of like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, of course, but I think that was like a little bit more on the Led Zeppelin side. This one, very interesting. And I can see it's somewhat divisive with the fan base. Like, first off, like the album cover is kind of odd. Like, I never quite get the whole green plastic head, like it's like a severed army man head or something. I don't know. But musically, kind of different. Like, this is, well, heavy, but it's more like groove metal heavy. Like, this doesn't have like the big doomy bite of like, you know, the Skull and the first album and, well, I mean, all the early stuff. But thinking about the time that it came out, you know, 1995, this kind of has like a grungy vibe to it. Eric's vocals are quite a bit different here. He's not doing his high register, like kind of Robert Plant-esque sort of wailing. There's only a few songs where he's really doing it more. Most of the time it's a lower register, and honestly, it kind of has an Alice in Chainsy vibe. Like, this has like dirt and, you know, facelift sort of vibes all throughout it. But see, I like that sort of thing, and, you know, couple that with like kind of the groove metal vibe on some of these songs, like, it's good, but it kind of feels like one of those identity crisis albums where like, well, we're kind of adapting to the times, and there's only so much of their original sound you can really hear on here. And honestly, it kind of feels like they were trying to write more singles this time, because it felt like they were just trying different stuff to get on the radio. Like, you have some more like southern rock sort of tinged stuff on here on, let's see, Here on Earth. But the song Flowers, I mean, it kind of sounds like, you know, just a moody grunge jam from the early to mid 90s. But while this was, you know, a little bit more uneven, I still really dug it. And, you know, this was one I was kind of apprehensive about getting. Like, I still need to get, you know, I believe there's 2 other albums I'm missing. But overall, I still really enjoyed this. It's just a very different album. And pretty much a good example of, again, like changing musical landscape, trying to keep up with trends. They went from having a major label release with Manic Frustration. They even had Rick Rubin do the production on it. And then, you know, the scene changed. They got, you know, pretty much taken off a major label, and they were kind of back in the underground trying to figure out what they were going to do next. And came out with a pretty decent album. Like, it's definitely not one of my favorites by Trouble, because they have some absolutely legendary albums, but this was still really good. I do have to say, I think it's odd that they had 2 covers on here. They threw a Monkees cover and a Beatles cover in here. Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles and Porpoise Song by the Monkees. And it's weird, I actually remembered the Monkees song because I'm reasonably sure they played it in an episode of the Monkees when I used to watch that. But yeah, interesting album. I definitely recommend checking it out. Again, it's not like a lot of Trouble stuff, but it's still pretty damn good. And I mean, it's got some great riffs. So I mean, if you're like an Alice in Chains or Soundgarden fan, and you also like doom metal and groove metal, like, you know, Down, and I mean, if you like Trouble, there's still some stuff on here that definitely sounds, you know, a little bit closer to the older stuff. Check it out. It's a pretty interesting album, and it definitely has its moments. Entrails, An Eternal Time of Decay. This is the 7th album from this Swedish death metal act. I am a self-proclaimed slut for HM2, and, well, this dirty little slut got some HM2. This is straight up, no bones, old school death metal. I mean, fierce, entombed, grave, and dismember worship. I mean, these guys were actually around during that time, but they didn't get started until much later in their career, and pretty much have just released straightforward, solid albums, just sticking to that straight up old school sound. Now I have to say the mix in here is a little bit odd, just because, I mean, it has the snarling HM2 tone, which of course I absolutely love, but I think the vocals are really out in front and they feel kind of dry. Not terrible, but I know they're kind of just out there and exposed. And while I really dig this, like, it is kind of by the numbers, this pretty much holds the course of old school Swedish death metal, and it does not deviate one bit. I do think the samples are fun, especially, dude, The Dead. They sampled fucking Addams Family, or Addams Family Values. I can't remember which one, but I know I heard Raul Julia doing the Wake the Dead thing and everyone chanting, and then they go dig up their relatives. Addams Family are weird, but we love them for it. And they did pepper in some cool samples from Army of Darkness with Dead by Evil, which I particularly love that one because it was Ash fucking up what he was supposed to say before removing the book. The Klato Verita. Got it. I sympathize with Ash because I have to try to pronounce a lot of foreign words and I consistently fuck them up. So yeah, it's a good thing I wasn't picking up the book because yeah, we'd all be pretty well fucked. But yeah, overall this is just, you know, a fun Swedish death metal release. I mean, you got D beats, you got like the punkier songs, you got blast beats. It's definitely aggressive as hell. Lyrically, it's good, dumb fun. I mean, you don't throw in Army of Darkness samples if you don't love campy shit. I just don't see that happening. But yeah, this is, you know, good. I mean, they have a lot of solid releases. I think, God, was it World Inferno? That one might be the one that I go to the most. This is still good. I think it's better than the last one. But again, it kind of got a little bit old later on, and it does run a bit long for what it is. But overall, still a solid album. So yeah, if you like Swedish death metal, you love Entomb, Dismember, Bloodbath, any of that shit, definitely check this out. Deathwhite, Grey Everlasting. This is the third album from this Pennsylvania-based, let's see, melodic doom / gothic metal. I don't know, they kind of straddle both of those, but, you know, the main thing is they are gloomy and doomy, and I fucking love them. Now, I do think it's interesting their last album, Graven Image, actually had a more gray cover than the album called Grey Everlasting, but that doesn't matter because the music is absolutely killer. Oh, man, it's kind of in that realm of like Catatonia, but like lots of love for Typo Negative, and I still fucking adore that band. Like, it's still my fun bummer music. Lots of clean vocals, lots of clean guitars mixed in with like big doomy riffs. I love the atmosphere in here. It's very sullen or very melancholy. While most of this is definitely more like slow to mid-tempo, there are sections with blast beats. There are some more aggressive riffs, like more akin to death metal and black metal, but the vibe of it is definitely just more dark and brooding. I think all the vocals are clean. A lot of stuff in here that definitely reminds me of like the cleaner vocals from like, you know, Nick Holmes or Aaron Stanthorpe from My Dying Bride. Like, there's definitely a fair amount of the whole Peaceville sound on here too. The melodies are amazing. Like, this is like epic sadness, which sounds terrible, but musically it translates really well. But I think the main thing on here is it doesn't come across as like sappy. It comes across as earnest. There's a lot of emotional weight to it. And I like the varying degrees of intensity. Like, you get long drawn out sections of just clean, more dreary atmospheric guitars, and you get some flat out heavy moments. And occasionally you get the vocals to sort of shift to like a more gruff bellow and just adding a little bit of like doomy heft to it. This album is amazing, and I've been big on Hangman's Chair this year. I really enjoy that album, and that has, again, so much Typo Negative fucking love on it. Like, it hits me right in my fucking typo feels. But this one is running in pretty close in terms of competition for it, because this is also fucking amazing, and I really enjoyed the last one. So yeah, if you're looking for some epic bummer music, Deathwhite, oh my god, jam all their stuff. I still haven't jammed their first album, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and probably say it's awesome, because Graven Image is amazing, and I really fucking dig this one too. So yeah, strongly recommend checking this out. Killer stuff. Porcupine Tree, Closure Continuation. This is the 11th studio album, I think the first in 13 years from this long-standing prog rock, debatably prog metal act. This was definitely a big anticipated release for a lot of people. I would say me too, because I mean, I like this band. I'm not like as full bore into them. Like, I have a lot of their releases, and I do dig them. It's just not a band I go for as much. But when I heard some of the lead-off singles, like, dude, this sounds pretty fucking cool. And this is a pretty solid album. It's hard for me not to compare it to like previous stuff. Like, I got into them around Deadwing. In Absentia is a fucking awesome album. It's one of their heavier ones, very riffy. This is just like a really good Porcupine Tree album. Like, it definitely has a lot of its prog influence. There's definitely like more alternative vibes to it too. I would say like this is somewhere between like Radiohead and Tool, and then like some classic prog sort of sprinkled in there. Steven Wilson, marvelous writer, marvelous producer, some really solid songs in here. I love the opening track, Heridian. I think that has like a really cool sort of like funky bass line to it that actually gets heavy. And this isn't like a super heavy release, and I really didn't expect it to be, but it did have some surprisingly heavy moments, like some moments where you could actually call this prog metal. But most of the time, this is more rock, and it's more like atmospheric and sort of anthemic, and overall it works pretty well. And honestly, the softer songs I think are pretty damn good too. Like Of the New Day and Dignity I think are very earnest and very heartfelt, and they just have a really cool lush atmosphere to them. And I really like the build up on Herd Calling. There's a lot of cool like 80s synths in there. Kind of reminded me of the last Genghis Tron, which I still jam very fucking frequently. Overall though, this was a good album. Like, I didn't really know what to expect after 13 years. Like, it was just kind of good to hear them come back, and they didn't come back with the clunker, that's for damn sure. It's just, you know, kind of hard not to compare it to previous works and kind of see where it settles in the whole, you know, discography. And this is, you know, just a good fucking Porcupine Tree album. I would have liked a little bit more intensity to it, but overall, I don't have a lot of complaints about this. But yeah, I mean, if you're a longtime Porcupine Tree fan, there's probably a good chance you already own this. But if you didn't get it, get it. It's a good fucking album. And if you haven't ever jammed Porcupine Tree, I mean, I don't know if I'd say start off with this one, because there's a lot of really, really fucking good albums out there, especially Fear of a Blank Planet. That's like one of my personal favorites. But they're a solid band. I strongly recommend checking them out. And, you know, this might not be a bad place to start. But yeah, check it out. Mournful Congregation, the Exuviae of Gods. I'm not entirely sure I said that word right. But anyway, this is the second EP from this Australian funeral doom act. Actually features members of a ton of bands. Let's see, namely Cauldron Black Ram, Void Ceremony, Sempiternal Dusk. A lot of underground bands. There's a lot of like incestuousness in terms of like the bands there. Like just they kind of just jump around with the same members and just put up a different banner with a different logo, and voila, you have a new band. But the output of that country in terms of metal has been amazing. There's just so many fucking good bands there, and this is another one. I've been a fan of this band since the Incubus of Karma was the album that I picked up, and I was like, dude, this is so fucking dark and oppressive and slow, and I love it. And this is more of that, except I think possibly even more melodic. Like the melodies on here, as dreary and as oppressive and dark as they are absolutely fantastic. There are only 3 tracks on here, and 2 of them are over 14 minutes, and when I saw that, it was like, well, all right, well, let's fucking doom. I don't want to feel good about anything after listening to this. And yeah, no, this is bleak as hell, but again, I was really drawn in by the melodies, and the songwriting on here is absolutely fantastic. There's just a lot of mood and just really cool transitions and atmosphere in here. This is just fucking fantastic. The opening of the first track, Mountainous Shadows Cast Through Time, it's weird, but it kind of reminds me of Blackened. Like it has a synthy fade in, but the melody itself kind of has that fade in sort of melody to Blackened by Metallica. Like it was kind of odd. It was just something I noticed, but sets up the song in terms of just how bleak that fucker gets. And man, dude, this is one of the 14-minute ones too. Like this is just heavy and dark, but again, melody. I absolutely love the fucking melodies on here. The songs feel just like giant in scope. Like this is very comparable to like Esoteric, Evoken. I would even throw in Hooded Menace on there. Maybe not so much like the newer stuff, but definitely older stuff. There are what sound like strings on here too. Like, I don't know, this is just such a giant sounding album, and even the instrumental track, which is the title track on here, it's the shorter one. Well, I mean, it's under 10 minutes. That's short for them. Is a really cool, like, mostly acoustic, dreary instrumental. And it's a good break from the other 2 songs. Like, this is like the Eye of the Doom Hurricane, where it's a little bit more calm, but get ready for it, because the last track will just absolutely crush you, too. This is a band I definitely need to dive into more. Like, I just have the one release, and now just this one, and I definitely want more. Like, this is just flat out fucking killer funeral doom / death doom. Like there's definitely a deathy vibe, and the vocals definitely have more of a death metal approach outside of some spoken word here and there. But yeah, absolutely fucking love this. Strongly recommend it. Strongly recommend the Incubus of Karma too if you have not jammed that. Definitely a long release, and this is pretty long for an EP, but overall absolutely fucking amazing. So yeah, if you've never checked out Mournful Congregation, strongly recommend them. Australian metal in general seems to be just badass as fuck, and this is just another example of it. So yeah, check it out. Khold Svartsyn. This is the 7th album from this Norwegian black metal act. Honestly, I'd kind of forgotten about these guys for a while. I actually own Krek from 2005, and I really enjoyed it. And I just kind of forgot about this band in general, and I saw this was coming out, and I jammed a couple of tracks. I was like, dude, this is really good. And this is, again, kind of like one of the things I like in black metal. It's very riffy black metal. In fact, I would say this is closer to like more like Celtic Frost style black metal. So like Triptychon too, I would say there. It's like a little bit more groove laden. The guitar tone is thick and rich. It's very well produced. It's not like particularly raw, but it has like really good black metal vocals. And I think part of the reason why it sounds so damn good in terms of production is this is an Andy LaRocque production. He did a great fucking job once again, which honestly, almost anything I've heard mixed by him sounds fantastic. Lots of groove. There's not a lot of blast beats on here. Like, this is more groove laden, kind of doomy too, and maybe kind of bordering on black and roll at times, but man, these guys know how to write some great hooks. Like, the riffs are not super intricate and complicated. They are just well played and just very fucking hooky, but it doesn't lose its sinister edge like whatsoever. It does pick up the pace a little bit, especially on Manguard, but most of this, again, very groove laden. And again, I like the fact that they're not afraid to write hooks. Like, this isn't just delving too far into being atmosphere drenched and just say like, oh, let's just reverb it to death and throw blast beats on it. Like, that's the kind of black metal that, you know, I like, but at the same time can get old really quickly. This album has like variety in terms of like the pacing of it. You get some different pace songs, and regardless of the song, you seem to always get crushing riffs and some solid breakdowns, especially on Helig Dom of Dode. Again, you know, foreign languages and me, well, we could get along, but brain just can't do it. But yeah, I really dug this one. And this one kind of surprised me again because I wasn't even sure this band was still around anymore. And I always thought, you know, the frontman had this unique look in terms of his corpse paint, because he sort of paints the bottom half of his face black and the top half's white, and surprisingly effective in its creepiness. But yeah, this one kind of surprised me. I'd been kind of like out of the loop in terms of what this band's been doing for a while, and this is a really solid album. Again, not the more raw style of black metal or anything like that. Like, this is definitely well produced and very hook laden, but it's fucking good. So yeah, if you like Triptychon, Celtic Frost, especially like Monotheist, definitely check this out. Solid fucking album. Zentrix, Shattered Existence. This should look familiar because I just went over this because I got a copy of this at MDF. And again, I'm like 99.9% sure that that was a boot. But they had it, and I wanted it, and that was kind of just enough. But I really wasn't sure if they were ever going to reissue this album. Now, this is the debut album from this UK thrash band. It came out in 1989, originally on Roadrunner Records. And this band was fucking fantastic. Well, they are fantastic because they are still around and they are putting out a new album, and I'm looking forward to checking that out. But the first two albums especially are so fucking good. And I wanted an official release of it, and I got an official release of it and a remaster, and this remaster sounds good. They were kind of like UK Metallica. Like, they had a very Metallica-esque sound, but there was also a lot of like more technical play in there too. Like, this band was just absolutely fantastic, and then they ended up kind of breaking up and then, you know, reforming much later, but coming back pretty strong with the last one. So I'm looking forward to this new one. But yeah, I was gonna keep this one short. I just want to say, hey, I have a non-boot copy of this now, and I'm very happy about it, and the remaster sounds fucking fantastic. So if you've been on the hunt for a copy of this one, and finding an original is pretty damn hard, well, now there is one. This is out on Distance Records, and I recommend hunting it down if you absolutely love this album, because it sounds fucking glorious. So yeah, check it out. Again, technically. Idle Throne, The Sibylline Age. This is the debut album from this Indiana-based thrash metal / power metal band. Everyone knows how I feel about power metal, but you know what? I wanted to give this band a chance because this was actually given to me courtesy of the guitarist Jason Schultz, who is also in Wraith, and Wraith is fucking awesome. In fact, they just played here in Ohio at the Into Darkness Fest in Youngstown, and unfortunately Youngstown's a fucking hike from here, so I didn't make it out there, but I had some fans of the channel tell me, he's like, yeah, dude, fucking Wraith killed it. I was like, I totally fucking believe you, because, I mean, I own their albums. They're fucking good. But Jason Schultz actually got a hold of me on Facebook and said, hey, would you mind checking out, this new project I have called Idle Throne? And, of course, I told him, yeah. It's like, dude, by the way, Wraith fucking rules, and I can't wait to hear more from that, too. And now I have another band that he's in that, honestly, I liked. And, yeah, I said power metal, and I generally bitch about power metal, but this is more along the lines of the power metal that I could tolerate, because it is backed by thrash, and it's more that US power metal, so it's a little bit heavier. Holy shit, the riff work on here is so fucking good. Like, this is definitely a departure from what you hear in Wraith. Like, Wraith is definitely more stripped down and just kind of focused on the aggression. This is more about melody and then sort of melding that with the aggression, because a lot of this just drives. Like, it just has a nice galloping pace to like pretty much every song in here. And honestly, like, listening to it, especially with the vocals kind of sound like Joey Belladonna. Like, the first thing I heard was a very Joey Belladonna like wail in the beginning, and when he settled into his delivery, I was like, he kind of sounds like Joey. And I fucking love Anthrax, so this is like Anthrax plus like I don't know, lyrics and themes more in the spirit of like Lord of the Rings. So kind of like combine that, and I think you get a good chunk of this album. I do think the vocal production is like a little bit dry at times, like, you know, maybe like additional reverb here and there, or just like something on there. But overall, I really like his delivery. It's very powerful. And my God, the fucking riffs on here, the melodies are fucking epic, but they're powerful at the same time. They're not cheesy, which is the thing I generally bitch about the most when it comes down to power metal. So I have to say, like, this is power metal. I mean, it's also thrash. I'm going to give it, like, more of a thrash nod here. It's pretty fucking good. Like, I really fucking ended up digging this. It is a bit long, though. I will say that it does clock in over an hour. The last track is over 11 minutes, but, I mean, it's the title track, and it's a giant epic, so, yeah. But honestly, like, despite it being long, there wasn't a song in here that I didn't like. Like, I enjoyed all of them. They have great intensity. The songwriting is amazing. There's great clean melodies in there, both from the vocals and the guitars. There's like cool acoustic passages. Literally, I think if you just like metal in general, you're going to find some stuff on here that you really dig. Hell, even Raven's Blade has like tremolo riffs and like D beats to it. It's like, all right, that's like a little bit outside of the power metal spectrum, and it kind of gets a little bit heavier. And dude, Crown of Fools, what a fucking song. So yeah, Jason, thank you so much for sending this my way. This is fucking killer. And me not being a power metal fan, like I was prepared to like, man, I don't want to fucking be like mean about power metal to a guy that sent me his fucking work. But yeah, no, this is fucking awesome. So yeah, be very, very fucking proud of this. Looking forward to more stuff from Wraith 2. If you guys have not checked this out, I strongly recommend it. Again, like, it has an Anthrax-like vibe to it, and it's thrashy, it's heavy, it doesn't come across as cheesy. It pretty much neutralized almost everything I could bitch about when it came down to power metal. So, I mean, yeah, you guys made me like power metal. Technically, it's still thrash. I'm gonna lean more on that. But yeah, definitely check this out. This is a fucking killer debut. Atrophy. And I got a 2-discer here for you because this is the reissue of both Socialized Hate and Violent by Nature. I have been wanting a copy of these albums for a long time now. And once again, Distance Productions came through because as soon as I saw this was out, I was like, dude, I need to get this. This is the only 2 full-length albums this band has ever released, based out of Arizona. This is high-octane, in-your-face fucking thrash metal. These guys apparently just reunited, which is kind of a theme in their history. Like, there's a fair amount of breakups and reunions. They reunited last year, though I think the only original member is the frontman. But I kind of want to see if they do more music because both these albums absolutely rip. I'm a bigger fan of Socialized Hate because it's just solid, aggressive thrash metal. Like, this was Arizona's equivalent to fucking Exodus. It's violent as hell. The vocals kind of have like a sort of a sneer to them. They sound like, you know, like pissed off and in your face. The fucking riff work is really solid, just very aggressive, but also very technical, and lots of like cool melodic passages on there. Especially the song Preacher Preacher. I was really impressed with the technical crawling guitar melodies on there. It was just kind of different because a lot of this is just, you know, the aggression forward, but I mean, there is like a lot of nuance they're playing, and I really like that. And they do have fun. The song Beer Bong is fucking just sort of a crossover song kind of squeezed on a regular thrash metal album. It's a clear break from all the social commentary, like it's just a flat out fun track. They even fucking squeeze in a belch at the end of it. Fucking awesome. Now, Violent by Nature I thought was really good too. It's a little bit more heavy and in your face and maybe a little bit more groovy. I mean, it did come out in 1990, and by then thrash was still doing pretty well, but it was definitely changing and getting more aggressive. I've always had an issue with the album cover just because, like, it's just kind of a weird album cover. Plus, like, looking at the front of it, like, where there's a foot sticking out, you look at the toes, and there seems like there's a lot of real estate between the big toe and the other toes. Like, unless I'm looking at that wrong, that's not a foot and that's something else. I don't know, it's always just something that just draws my eye, like, that doesn't look right, like, at all. But musically, also pretty damn solid. Not as good as the debut, but still packs the aggression. The production's a little bit chunkier, the guitars sound a little bit thicker. I don't think there's as much technical play on it. They do squeeze in some cleaner vocals on Too Late to Change. They were okay, but I think a lot of this was, like, the songs didn't flow as well. Like, there were a couple that I just thought were still good, but they didn't have that just straight ahead sort of energy that were on the first one. Like, Forgotten But Not Gone it's a good song, but it doesn't feel put together very well. And these songs are a little bit longer than the ones that are on the debut. And maybe they're just trying to push themselves creatively, try to write some longer, more, thought out songs and maybe get some mixed results. But man, the last two songs alone, Things Change and Right to Die, fucking fantastic. But yeah, I was super fucking happy to get this. I actually showed this off in a live stream with the Saturday Night Crew, and I remember Brian in particular looking at it, I was like, oh shit, I've been looking for that. I was like, dude, go get it. They did a fantastic job remastering this. This sounds fucking amazing. So yeah, if you have never jammed Atrophy before, I strongly recommend them. It's just high octane thrash. If you're an Atrophy fan and finding the CDs or the albums in general have just been difficult, this is not a bad way to go about it. Plus the remaster job again is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, definitely check this out. Just killer fucking thrash, and I'm so happy to fucking have this, and believe me, this is a consideration for a retro review in the future. But for now, check it out. Drag the Dead. This is their self-titled debut from 2012. This was a St. Louis-based, or rather is a St. Louis-based death metal, death grind. At least that's what the archive said. I was pretty much informed in the comments that this is quote-unquote porno slam. And man, imagine my excitement when I heard that. I mean, it kind of is. Like, the subject matter's like just cringy and deliberate edgelord sort of shit. I did think that it was really interesting that the drummer actually was the former drummer of Time Ghoul, which Time Ghoul is fucking absolutely amazing and unfortunately very short-lived. And when it came down to like the drum work on that versus this, like this is more groove laden, beat down, slam, just, chuggy, whatever. And, occasional blast beats. Like, the grind thing, this doesn't grind very much, to be completely honest. It's more just straight up brutal death metal. And they throw in a fuck ton of just fucked up samples on here. But musically, honestly, I wasn't, like, completely turned off by this. Like, generally slam is not my thing, like, in its purest form. But, some of the songwriting here is pretty solid, and I do like that there's not that giant plunky snare. I know there are people out there that love it. I'm not one of those people. It also doesn't have like a lot of pig squeals on it. It's mostly just a good low delivery, and again, this is very groove laden, and there's a lot of cool, solid riffs on here, like kind of like 200 stab wounds. There's solid breakdowns in here. There's some pretty good riffs. It's just all the extra shit on here that's just kind of cringy. Like Serial Deity to the Aborted is essentially, I think, a sample or someone playing a part in a movie, and it's just this guy saying, I killed because of this, and killed because of this, and killed because of this. He gets progressively more pissed off, and I'm like, why is this here? Like, this is a long interlude. Like, I think it's like 3 minutes. And then we have the interview of Lisa Ann Montgomery, which, yeah, I had to remember that name because it sounded very familiar, and I looked up, and it's one of the most horrible fucking real true crime stories out there. Yeah, I'd say just look it up yourself. This woman was actually put to death last year for her crimes, and her crimes, it's insane to even imagine. And I don't want to necessarily go into it because it's very, very fucking graphic. But that seems to be the thing this band kind of thrives on. It's, again, very cringy. There's a lot of, like, sexual, perverse fucking lyrics, and those are generally, I don't know, like, kind of hit or miss. But admittedly, some of the song titles I did giggle at. Like, I mean, dude, Sledgehammer to the Cunt is pretty fucking funny. But overall, yeah, like, this had its moments, but again, like, all the extra shit in here just really felt unnecessary. This is their only full length, and it came out 10 years ago, so I don't know, like, if this band is actually still around and just didn't, like, update their archives. But, I mean, if you're a Slam fan, I'd say check it out. It's not necessarily for me, like, 100%, but I was surprised that there was some music on here that I really liked. But, yeah, subject matter was a little bit much. And, again, when I heard the interview thing with Lisa Ann Montgomery, and I went to look it up, I was like, man, I don't want to think about that ever, because, Jesus. It's just a horrible story across the board. Like, oh. Anyway, I'd say check this out. Again, if you're a fan of Slam, you might really dig it. I think it's okay, but that's just me. I'm not that big a Slam fan. But yeah, check it out. Thrashsquatch Axe to Inherit. This is the second album from this California-based thrash metal act. Just for fun, of course, I looked at the lyrical themes, and they include Yeti, and aliens. Not Sasquatch, though. I was kind of surprised. No swamp ape or Yaren either. But I mean, I get it. There's a lot of cryptids to cover, and, you know, you want to squeeze in some aliens. But this is just straight up thrash metal. I was kind of surprised, like, because I was expecting more, like, of a municipal waste sort of style of thrash metal, like more crossover, more punky. And while you do get elements of that, most of this is just straight up thrash, like kind of more like Bay Area sounding. Very high octane. There's great riffs and great melodies on here. I was really surprised, like, you know, some like non-thrash style like guitar work on here. Like every now and then it will kind of catch you off guard with something that you would not think of like being on a thrash metal album, like in terms of like a guitar effect or like a type of lead melody. But this is just like kind of a straight up just fun release. Like I just dug every track, and it was weird actually looking into this. Apparently there's another band called Thrash Squatch too, which I mean they have it spaced out, you know, as 2 words versus 1 word. So maybe that's why there's allowed to be 2. I don't know, maybe there needs to be a Thrash Squatch off or some shit. But I dug this. Brutality, which is spelled B-R-E-W. Of course, you know, beer themed. I was surprised, like, looking at that, like, all right, this is going to be the fucking short, punky one. This is going to be, like, the straight up, you know, municipal waste one. And actually, it's a little bit darker and sinister sounding, despite being a song about getting fucking hammered. So I like that there were some surprises in there. And honestly, the vocals were a big thing for me because the dude sounds a lot like Kurt Brecht from DRI, and I fucking love DRI. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to listen to, and I mean, I would say this is the big prize in terms of the albums I got in the Metalhead box. This was a lot of fucking fun to listen to. So if you've never jammed Thrash Squatch, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Like if you're a big fan, again, like Lich King, definitely like some Axis on here, like some more Bay Area thrash. Like it's not the most crossover sounding album, but it has a crossover attitude throughout most of it. Just check it out. It's a fucking ball, and I really fucking dig this. I'm gonna actually look for their first one now. All right, that takes care of another collection update. I already have a pretty good stack that I'm going to have to go through for another one. And again, eventually I want to squeeze in some more underrated albums. By now you've seen the underrated Doom one. That was a lot of fun to do. I don't know which genre I'm going to go with next. I still haven't decided, but I definitely want to do more. As for channel updates, once again, still trying to find a date to get together for Pantera. Like I said, this might take a little bit longer just because schedules are kind of at the opposite ends for a lot of people, but we're going to get it done eventually. And of course, there's a whole bunch of reviews coming, and, you know, again, trying to do some more underrated albums, and also have an idea for another series of videos that could be a lot of fun too, but I don't want to spoil a surprise. You're just going to find out when it happens. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon, and that Patreon link is in our Thralls of Metal link, so you can go to our website, maybe get one of our kick-ass t-shirts, and go sign up for the Patreon if you'd like to help us out. As for Denver Death Fest, I think we're going to be making an announcement of some kind. There have been some details that have shifted. I don't know if you watched our live stream after the Crowbar show that I went to, but we alluded to some changes. There are some changes. It is still going on. It's just, you know, we have to make some official announcement at some point, because, you know, I don't want to keep you guys in the dark, because, I mean, this looks like it could be a lot of fucking fun, and I think there might be some serious improvements made with this change. Either way, we hope to see you there in Denver, where the Denver Death Fest is. I don't know if the dates are going to be the same, so I'm not going to say exactly when it is, because I'm not sure if it is during that time, but it's definitely still happening. It's definitely going to be still 3 days, and definitely going to be there hanging out and watching bands and talking to people. So yeah, come up and talk to me. Come up and say hi to all of us. And of course, thank you to everyone that has liked, subscribed, followed, all that stuff. Again, this is the thank you part of the video, and I never know exactly what to say until it just kind of diarrheas out of my mouth. But know that I am still eternally grateful for all the help, you know, all the likes, all the subscribes, all the comments. Like, you know, I legit love doing this. It's fun fucking talking to you guys, and it's just a great fucking outlet. So know that it is you guys that keep us going, that keeps the drive going to keep doing this, that, and all the awesome music. But yeah, thank you guys still from the bottom of my black heart, and we will catch you later.